Before being able to run the code checkers or the fault injection simulator, TrueCode needs to know how to compile the source files you just imported. This tutorial will guide you through the process of configuring TrueCode for correctly compiling your source files. This video assumes that you have already created a workspace with your source code. If you haven't done this yet, please check the special tutorial to do that. To configure the compiler settings, go to Workspace Settings, then to Compiler Settings to start the Compiler Settings wizard. If this is the first time you open this wizard, TrueCode will offer you tips to help you in the configuration. You can disable these tips by clicking on Don't Show TrueCode Tips, and then on the OK button. The Compiler Settings wizard will guide you through the entire configuration process. In this tutorial, we will follow one of its paths to parse a build log from a make compilation system. Since most of the information that you will need for this tutorial is rather technical, we strongly advise you to get help from a member of your team who is familiar with compiling your code base. Stage 1. Target Platform Configuration. In the first stage, you can choose the target platform for compiling your source code. The Architecture drop-down menu shows a list of the supported architectures. In some cases, such as for the ARM architecture, it is also possible to specify the particular subarchitecture. This option will appear on another drop-down menu, below the architecture configuration. TrueCode will pass this information to the Clang compiler to parse inline assembly and to generate files for the right instruction set. Clang creates macros for the host platform on which Clang is running, such as the size of integers, pointers, among others. In some cases, you will like to set these macros manually. If this is the case, click on Clear Host Platform Macros checkbox to do so. To provide the now missing information, TrueCode can use two sources. If your macros are provided directly in the compilation line, then you have nothing else to configure. If your codebase uses a header file with these definitions, click on Show Optional Fields to show more configurations for this stage. Please refer to TrueCode Manual to learn more about them. In our case, we will use the predefined macros file to provide the missing information. Click on the folder icon next to predefined macros file to search for the header file containing your macros definitions. Later in the wizard, TrueCode can infer where the include folders are located if they are used with the -i or -i system compiler flags. If some additional include folders need to be specified, such as target-specific header files for the libc, please use the Additional Include Folders button. In the next window, create one configuration for each folder that you need to add. In this example, we create a new system include, since we are supplying libc-related header files. Once you are finished with the configurations for the target platform, click on Save Settings, and then move to the next stage. Stage 2. Compilation Database Configuration. In this stage, we need to tell TrueCode how to create a compilation database using one of the three supported methods: import, generate, or parse build log. In this tutorial, we cover the case when you have a build log coming from Make or a similar compilation system, and you need to parse it. To learn more about how to import a compilation database from a CMake compilation system, or how to generate a compilation database, please check other TrueCode tutorials. Select Parse Make Build Log under the Compilation Database Creation Method section. TrueCode shows a brief of the parsing and fixing process, together with the configuration for these next steps. First, you need to select a path for the parsed compilation database by clicking on the folder button next to Parsed Compilation Database file. TrueCode will parse and transform your build log into a compilation database in the given path. In some cases, your build log contains paths to files that do not exist in the platform running true code. This requires fixing the parsed compilation database. To this end, select an output file to store the fixed compilation database by clicking on the folder button next to the fixed compilation database file field. With this basic configuration, true code can move to the next stage and configure the build log to parse. In some cases, you might need to specify some other configurations. Click on Show Optional Fields to reveal such options. Here you can configure string replacements to automatically correct paths in your build log, or even specify compiler flags used by your compiler that are not compatible with Clang. Please refer to TrueCode's manual to know how to use these features. Once you are ready, click on the Save Settings button, and then on Go Forward to move to the next stage. Stage 3. Configuration of the build log to parse. In this stage, we need to tell TrueCode where to find the build log to parse and how to treat it. There are 4 values that can be configured in this stage. Base folder. This is the root folder that is used in your compilation lines. Usually, this line matches the code base folder that you configured as the code base path when creating the new workspace. However, if your source code is composed of multiple sub-projects, each one compiled individually, you might need to change this. Please get help from your development team to correctly configure this. Build log. This is the build log that you want to parse. Use the folder button next to this field to browse your files for the build log. Compiler type. Depending on the compiler you use, the format of the line might change. Select either GCC Clang or IAR to configure the compiler. Compiler strings. TrueCode needs to know which your compiler's executable name is. It will look for this text to recognize the invocation to the compiler within the line. With this information, it parses the used flags, input files, and other configurations. Once these 4 configurations are set, click on the Save Settings button, and then on Run button in the upper right corner of the window. While the parsing is running, you will see a progress bar to show the progress. Once the parsing is finished, the Run button will appear again. Before moving to the next stage, check that the Logging tab does not show a red-colored icon. If so, click on Next to move to the next stage. If the logging shows a red-colored icon, there was an issue parsing your build log. Check this information with the help of a developer of your team, and try again. You may need to go back to other stages to reconfigure the compilation. Stage 4. Fix the parsed compilation database. Once the build log has been parsed, TrueCode can analyze your compilation configuration to attempt fixing your compilation database automatically. This will create correct entries for the files in your build log. In the fix stage, you can choose which is your top folder, which usually corresponds to the root folder of your code base, whether to include files in the subfolders or not, and the filter configuration for file names to be included in the process. Once you have configured your scan, press on the Run button to start the analysis and fix issues in your compilation database. When finished, TrueCode will show you a summary about the errors and warnings when trying to fix the compilation database. In the same log, it will also display the number of files that was able to compile correctly, along with the ones that did not succeed. Once the fix has been completed, you can click on Go Forward to move to the next stage. Stage 5. Run Compilation Diagnostics. In this final stage, TrueCode needs to use the compilation database to run compilation diagnostics. This stage is mandatory, and it is useful to detect any files in your codebase that are not compiling correctly. In the diagnostics stage, you can configure the diagnostics execution. Top folder. The file tree will be scanned starting from this folder to look for source files. By default, this configuration is the root folder of your code base. However, you might change this to match the build folder that you configured in the last stage. Subfolders, whether to include or exclude subfolders when looking for source files. File name, enter file name, or part of file name, to select files, or even leave field empty for selecting all files. Database or all, whether to look for files that have a compilation line in the compilation database, or try to run the diagnostics on all the discovered files. In most cases, you will not have to make changes to these configurations. However, your code base might need some adjustments in these values. Please get help from a developer of your team who is familiar with the compilation process. Once you have correctly configured the diagnostics, click on the Run button to execute the diagnostics. The execution of the diagnostics might take a moment. TrueCode gives you an estimate about how long the process might take. Click on Yes to continue the execution. While executing, TrueCode shows you which file is being compiled and the result of that compilation. At the end of the process, TrueCode will give you a report about the diagnostics. Files that could not be compiled will be shown in red. Additionally, TrueCode will also report a short description why the file could not be compiled. In the case your code base contains pieces of code that are guarded by macros, TrueCode can discover them. If this is the case, the diagnostics report shows how many lines of code are switched when changing the value of such macros. In case TrueCode was not able to compile one or more files, you will get a pop-up notification about this. You can select if you want to continue with the current compilation database or not. We highly recommend you do not continue. Check the diagnostics log and try to fix the compilation errors. More information about why a file could not be compiled can be found in the Logging tab. Once the diagnostics have been completed, you can safely close the compiler settings wizard. You have now successfully parsed the build log and created a TrueCode compilation database. If you wish to run the code checkers on your code base, you still need to index your code base and generate context. Please refer to the tutorials that guide you in that process to continue.